I always had a feeling my sister Rachel would try to ruin my wedding. She's been doing things like that since we were kids, but even I didn't expect her to do it so loudly, or so publicly. My name is Emma Collins, and I met James, the man I was about to marry, in a little Italian restaurant in downtown Boston. At least, that's what most people believed. They thought he was just a waiter. That part was true, but only partly. James was working as a waiter, yes, but he wasn't just anyone. He was the heir to the Romano family, one of the wealthiest restaurant families in the country. He wanted to learn the business from the ground up, so he took jobs washing dishes, serving tables, even cleaning kitchens. He didn't want any special treatment, and he didn't want anyone to know who he really was, not yet. We agreed to keep his secret until after the wedding. When I first told my family about him, Rachel rolled her eyes. "He's a waiter," she said with a smirk. "Seriously, Emma, you went to Yale, you're a teacher, you could do way better." That's how Rachel is. Everything with her is about money, image, and appearances. She married some hedge fund guy straight out of college and made sure everyone knew she was successful. To her, I was settling. She made that very clear. The morning of the wedding was beautiful, sunny skies, a little breeze. I was getting ready in the bridal suite with my mom when Rachel barged in like a storm. "You can't marry him," she shouted, her designer heels clicking across the floor. "Everyone's talking, they think you've lost your mind. The only one saying that is you, Rachel," Mom said with a sigh. She'd been tired of Rachel's drama for a long time. "He's just after her money," Rachel snapped. I actually laughed at that. I'm a teacher, I don't exactly have millions. Meanwhile, James's net worth, not that Rachel knew, could buy her house a dozen times over. But I kept quiet. We promised to wait. The truth would come out soon enough. The ceremony started and everything was going beautifully. James looked amazing in his custom suit. Most people probably assumed it was rented. Rachel had convinced a few relatives not to come, but I didn't care. The people who mattered were there. Then came that moment, the one people always talk about. If anyone knows any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. Rachel stood up. I knew it was coming, but it still made my stomach turn. "This is ridiculous," she yelled. "Emma, you're better than this. You're marrying a waiter. This is pathetic." The church went silent. James gave my hand a small squeeze and leaned in. "Should we tell her?" he whispered. I shook my head. "Not yet." Rachel kept going. She walked down the aisle, heels echoing against the floor. "You were supposed to be the smart one, Emma, the one with a future, and now you're throwing it away on some server. When this falls apart, don't come crying to me." And just like that, she turned and left. The doors slammed behind her. The priest looked a little shaken. "Shall we continue?" I looked at James, smiled, and nodded. "Let's." The rest of the ceremony was perfect. We exchanged rings and vows, and when we walked out as husband and wife, I felt a peace Rachel could never take away. We took photos, then got into a vintage Rolls-Royce that James rented, though it was actually from his personal collection. We were headed to our reception, which Rachel thought would be at some cheap banquet hall. She had no idea what was waiting for her. The Romano, James's family's most famous and exclusive restaurant, had been closed to the public just for us. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, gold-trimmed walls, every table perfectly decorated. Servers in white gloves carried champagne that cost more than Rachel's designer heels. Guests were stunned. I could hear whispers. How did they afford this? Is this the right place? Then, as expected, Rachel showed up, fashionably late, probably hoping to catch us in some tacky reception she could mock. She walked in, looked around, and froze. Her mouth dropped open. "This is the Romano," she said, marching up to me. "They don't do wedding receptions. There's a mistake." James stepped beside me, calm as ever. "They made an exception," he said, "for family." Before she could respond, an older man in a tailored suit approached. Everyone quieted when they saw him. It was Antonio Romano himself, James's grandfather, the head of the Romano Empire. "James," he said, smiling and pulling my husband into a warm hug. "My grandson, finally married to his beautiful Emma." The room gasped. Rachel turned pale. "Grandson?" she asked, confused. "What do you mean, grandson?" Antonio looked at her kindly, but with a bit of sharpness in his eyes. "You must be the sister who caused such a scene at the church," he said. "What was it you called my grandson again?" "Oh, yes, some server." Rachel looked like she might faint. Suddenly everything made sense to her, the Rolls-Royce, the restaurant, the way James had carried himself, the twinkle in his eye when she insulted him. The guests who had once pitied me now looked at Rachel with something between shock and amusement. Her judgment, her pride, her insults, they all came crashing down in that one moment. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the best answer, especially when the truth is shining so brightly around you. James took my hand, ready to enjoy the party. I smiled, more than ever. And with that, we walked into the celebration of our new life together, leaving Rachel standing there, stunned, speechless, and very, very alone. When the truth came out, it felt like time stopped. James wasn't just a waiter like everyone thought. He was actually the heir to one of the biggest restaurant empires in the country. The Romano Group owned hundreds of fine dining restaurants around the world, along with fancy hotels, vineyards, and real estate. Rachel looked stunned. I didn't know, she stammered. Clearly, said Antonio, James's grandfather, his voice calm but sharp, maybe next time you'll understand that true class isn't about someone's job, it's about how they treat others. James gently squeezed my hand as guests around us started whispering. They were beginning to understand. The small wedding ceremony followed by this grand reception. The waiter, who turned out to be restaurant royalty. Rachel's face turned red. Why didn't he tell me? She demanded, looking at James. You let me believe. You let me embarrass myself. Would it have mattered? I asked quietly. Would you have treated James any differently if you had known the truth? That's exactly why we didn't tell anyone. We wanted to see who really cared about us. But I'm your sister, she said, like that changed everything. Yes, I replied, my voice calm but firm, and that makes your behavior even worse. You couldn't be happy for me unless you approved of my husband's status. Antonio cleared his throat and said, if you'd like to leave, no one would blame you. You've already provided enough drama for the day. Rachel looked around and saw the way people were staring at her. The same people who had heard her make rude comments earlier were now watching her squirm. I should go, she whispered. But then James spoke up. Stay, he said. Everyone turned to look at him. Stay and enjoy the reception, he continued. Take this as a chance to see people for who they really are, not what they own or what they do for work. I looked at him with pride. Even after everything Rachel had said and done, James still showed more kindness and class than she ever had. Rachel hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'd like that, and I owe you both an apology. Yes, you do, Antonio said, but perhaps that can wait until after the first dance. I believe the bride and groom have waited long enough. James took my hand and led me to the dance floor. I glanced over at Rachel as we twirled under the glittering chandeliers. She stood off to the side, watching us, probably wondering how many apologies it would take before she could start bragging about being related to the Romano family. She's not going to change overnight, James murmured. No, I said, but maybe she'll think twice next time before judging someone by their job. The rest of the night felt like something out of a fairy tale. We had a beautiful meal full of Romano signature dishes, wine from the family's own vineyard, and stories from James's journey, how he insisted on starting at the bottom and learning every part of the business. He wanted to wash dishes and wait tables, Antonio proudly told the guests. He said he needed to understand it all before he could run it. Most kids born into money want a cushy office job, not James. I saw Rachel's face as she listened. She finally realized just how wrong she had been. The man she looked down on had more character and work ethic than most people she admired. She tried a few times to come over and talk to us, probably to apologize or explain herself. But we were always surrounded by people who wanted to share a kind word or congratulate us. She'd have to wait a bit longer. After all, she'd spent so much time making me feel small. A little humility wouldn't hurt her. Besides, I had other things to focus on, like the honeymoon waiting for us on the Romano family's private island. But that surprise could wait. For now, I was just happy to be dancing with my husband, surrounded by love and laughter. If my sister learned something from all this, well, that was just a bonus. A year went by, and James and I settled into our new life. We moved into a penthouse that looked out over Boston Harbor. I kept teaching, and James started taking on more responsibilities at Romano Group. We stayed private and simple, just the way we liked it. But Rachel struggled. You could at least let me throw a housewarming, she complained during one visit, looking around our minimalist space. This place deserves to be shown off. That's exactly why we don't show it off, I said. Some things are better when they're kept private. She didn't get it. She spent the whole year trying to fix her image, dropping the Romano name whenever she could, filling her social media with posts about our restaurants and family dinners with us. James just laughed it off. At least she's giving us free marketing, he joked. But then everything changed. Her perfect life fell apart when her husband, Michael, was caught in a financial scandal. He was being investigated for insider trading and fraud. Suddenly, their fancy life was gone, cars, house, bank accounts all frozen. One night, she showed up at our door crying. Her makeup was smudged, and she looked completely lost. "They're taking everything," she sobbed. "Michael's facing prison. I don't know what to do." I brought her into the living room where James was working. He looked up, concerned. "I need help," Rachel said. "I don't know how to start over." James and I shared a look. This was the moment. Would we help the sister who had once looked down on us? "There's a small apartment," James said, "above one of our restaurants in Cambridge. It's not fancy, but it's safe." Rachel blinked. "You'd give me that, after how I treated you?" "On one condition," I said. "You work in the restaurant, learn from the bottom, like James did. You wait tables." She looked horrified. "And wash dishes, bus tables, cook," James added. "Learn what it means to really work." Rachel was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll do it, but I'll need help. I don't know how." That's when I knew, maybe, just maybe, my sister was ready to change. The next few months were hard but healing. Rachel moved into the apartment. She swapped her designer outfits for work uniforms. She cried when she had to clean a bathroom. She dropped plates. She burned herself in the kitchen. But she didn't quit. She learned to respect the work. She started tipping better at restaurants, standing up for staff when others were rude. She changed. 6 months later, I visited her. She was rushing around the kitchen, hair tied back, no makeup, focused and confident. "She's doing great," James said beside me. "The team actually likes her." "Do you think she's learned her lesson?" I asked. "I think she's learned more than one," he smiled. "Want to tell her the news?" When her shift ended, Rachel sat with us. She looked tired but at peace. "How would you feel about managing this place?" James asked. Her eyes went wide. "Me? Seriously? You've worked every position, earned the staff's respect. The current manager is moving to our new location in Chicago. The job's yours if you want it." Tears filled her eyes. "Why would you trust me with this?" "Because you proved us wrong," I said gently. "We thought you couldn't change, but you did." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I was awful. I thought money and status were everything, but now I know, it's about who you are, not what you have." Later that night, James and I walked home, hand in hand. "Your sister finally found her way," he said. "Our way," I replied. "The hard way, the honest way." He smiled. "Think she's ready for the family reunion next month?" I laughed, imagining her walking in with her restaurant uniform, proud and real. "She's ready," I said. "For the first time in her life, she's really herself." And that was the real victory, not showing her up at our wedding, not the private island honeymoon, but watching her finally grow into the person she was always meant to be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's helping someone become better. Rachel's journey from spoiled socialite to restaurant manager reminded me that people can change, if they want to, and if someone gives them the chance. And as for James and me, we keep living simply, loving deeply, and treating people with respect. Because in the end, that's the real wealth, and it's worth more than all the Romano billions combined.